Good evening. It is 6:32 p.m. November 10th, and the meeting of the Urban Design Commission will now come to order. May we have a roll call?
Nicole Rain.
Here.
Mike Sullivan.
Here.
Edith McKee. Here. Allison Gordy. Here. Julia Colin. Here. Aaron Hamilton. Here. Barbara Kaczynski. Do you have a quorum? Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the second item on our agenda, we have minutes from our special meeting on Thursday, August 19th. May we get a motion to approve the minutes from August 19th, 2021?
Say who your name is.
Edith McKee.
No, not
Monica Sullivan, second.
Thank you. It has been moved by Commissioner McKee and seconded by Commissioner Sullivan. Are there any objections or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, do we need to vote? I need to ask that question again.
If there are no objections.
Okay, then the minutes are approved. Are there any disclosures this evening? No disclosures? Okay. Moving right along. It looks like we're all the way down onto item G, public hearings. I will read the procedure by which the public may speak to the Urban Design Commission at its meeting. Okay, number one. After the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Urban Design Commission Rules of Procedure. Petitioners, including all of his or her representatives, have 10 minutes. Rebuttal by the petitioner may be allowed when time has been reserved. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc. are given 5 minutes, and individuals are given 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the commission. An individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Urban Design Commission takes, except commission recommendations to the assembly which are not appealable. Appeals must be filed with the clerk's office within 20 days after approval by the Urban Design Commission of the resolution, which is the commission's final decision. A fee for the appeal is required at the time of filing. Wait a second here. Okay, the case we have before us is case 2021-0022. Petitioner is, I hope I say this right, Wat Lau, who's before us with a request for design variances from Anchorage Municipal Code 21.05 and 21.07 to allow existing landscaping to remain as is, and also section 21.05 to allow traffic access other than that from a street designated as a collector or grader in the official streets and highways plan. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, audio check. Sounds like you can hear me.
This parcel is used by Wat Lau for a Buddhist temple and housing Buddhist monks. Therefore, the activities meet the use definition of a religious assembly. Wat Lau is petitioning for 3 variances from use-specific standards for religious assemblies: the requirement to provide access from a collector or grader street, a second variance for the requirement for 25% of the property to be vegetated open space, and 3, a variance from the requirement for L2 buffer landscaping where the property line abuts residential zones, and also along with the landscaping, a variance from the requirement for L1 and L2 landscaping along the site perimeter, as this property is in the R4 district and it abuts the B3 and I1 districts. The temple building was constructed in 2004, and Wat Lau delayed closing out their building permit in the ensuing years such that they must follow new Title 21. The old Title 21 did not have the collector street access requirement or the 25% vegetated open space requirements for religious assemblies in the R4 district. Landscaping requirements were also different, and there is record of a submitted landscaping site plan for the property. The table on page 7 of the packet summarizes the 3 variance requests along with the code citations. The planning department received either comments of non-objection or support for granting the variances from both reviewing agencies and from neighbors. There are 8 standards that must be met to obtain a design variance. I will review the 8 standards as evaluated in the staff report. Criteria A. The standard criteria A is met. The proposed alternative achieves the intent of the subject design standard to the same or better degree than the subject standard. Traffic engineering does not object to the variance and noted pedestrian connection to nearby Commercial Drive, which is a minor arterial street. Commercial Drive also has connections to bus transit access and is an alternative means of complying with access requirements for the religious assembly. The landscaping on the subject property that exists today is superior than that of some of the nearby commercial and industrial properties, and it fits in well with the surrounding residential properties. The lack of open space does not deter from the aesthetic qualities of the temple. Criteria B is met. The proposed alternative achieves the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan to the same or better degree than the subject standard. This parcel is designated as compact mixed residential medium in the 2040 land use plan and also residential medium density in the Mountain View targeted neighborhood plan. Religious assemblies are allowed uses within residential districts if they meet use specific standards. So approving this variance would not allow a use that is not otherwise allowed in the zone. The subject property provides a community use that is compatible with the surrounding residential uses. The small temple size limits the number of people and vehicles that may gather at the site. And the Watlow of Anchorage site also attracts people both within Mountain View and from outside of the neighborhood, which is in alignment with the Mountain View targeted neighborhood plan. Criteria C is met. The proposed alternative results in benefits to the community that are equivalent to or better than compliance with the subject standard. Watlow of Anchorage is an asset to the community and provides a place to pray and honor the deceased. Monks who live on site ensure that the temple is less likely to be vandalized or unkept. The benefits to the community outweigh the lack of full compliance with landscaping, open space, and site access standards. Criteria D is met. The granting of this variance will not adversely affect the use of adjacent property. The planning department received some calls from neighbors who asked questions about the postcard notice of the variance application, but no neighbors objected when provided with additional details of the variance application. One neighbor also sent in written comment recommending approval. The driveways to Shoddy Street have been in place since at least the 1960s and date back to original construction of the lot, and traffic does not enter far into the residential neighborhood to access the temple. Criteria E is met. The variance will not change the character of the R4 district where the subject property is located. The R4 district is intended primarily for multifamily and multi-story residential buildings. The R4 district does also intend for some single-family and townhouse residential development and some commercial development within the residential areas. Strong pedestrian connections to nearby services are encouraged in the R4 district. As stated previously, this parcel has a pedestrian connection to Commercial Drive that has a bus transit route. The variances will not permit a use that's not permitted in the R4 district. Criteria F is met. The granting of this variance for driveway access and landscaping will not restrict or impede ADA accessibility or reasonable accommodation. One of the photos in the application showed a ramp leading to the door of the temple. And finally, criteria H is met. I'm sure I didn't skip one actually. Sorry, criteria G is met. The granting of this variance will not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the municipality. Traffic engineering recommended approval of the variances, and there is sufficient buffer from the adjacent residential uses. Then finally, criteria H is met. The variance does not involve a sign, so this criteria is met. The department finds that standards A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H are met. Since all 8 standards are met, the department recommends approval of the variance requests. If after the public hearing, the commission finds that all 8 approval criteria are met, then the variance should be subject to the following conditions, 1 through 5. 1, the variance allows access other than from a collector's street. 2, the variance for the landscaping, so they will provide, it's a variance from providing 8-foot landscaping beds on the full length of the north property boundary, from providing 8-foot landscaping beds along partial lengths of the west and south property boundaries, and from providing 7.5-foot landscaping along the partial width of the east property boundary, and the required 15-foot width for L2 landscaping required along the north and east property lines, the 10-foot width for L2 landscaping where the site obscuring fence is at the west property line, and lower than the required 15-foot width for L2 landscaping where the south property line abuts the I-1 district, and lower than the 8-foot width for L1 landscaping where the south property line abuts the B3 district. And I think I did misread the first line. So they're providing 8-foot landscaping beds, and then on one side it's 7.5 feet. So that's what they're providing, and then the rest is what they're varying from the requirements. 3 of the variance is less than the 25% of the lot open area, and then 4 and 5 are to 4 is resolve other outstanding nonconformities with the building that still remain, and 5 is that prior to the variances becoming effective, a notice of zoning action be filed with the State of Alaska District Recorder's Office. Just a reminder to the commission that we need 4 motions and votes this evening. So there's 3 variances. 1 is for the access other than from a collector street. 2 addresses the landscaping. 3 addresses the 25% lot area to remain as open or vegetated. And then 4 would apply the conditions 4 and 5 in the staff report to all 3 variances. With that, my staff report is complete.
Thank you. That was a lot. I appreciate that presentation. Are there any questions of staff? I'll take a nod in the negative if there are no questions of staff.
So you said we're making 3?
If you have a question, could you use your microphone? I'm sorry.
Does it work? Yeah. Sorry, the last part. We need to make 3 motions?
Yes, that's correct, because there's 3 different variances.
And I can walk them through that as well, because I was informed. So I will try my best to separate these out. So I'll request a motion in the specific case, specific variance. No other questions? Okay. Is the petitioner's representative here? Hi. If you can please state and spell your name for the record, and then let us know if you'd like to reserve any time for rebuttal after public testimony.
Is this on for one? Can you hear me? Or do I need to close?
Maybe you can, if you feel comfortable, you can, yeah.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Keep going.
Okay, my name is Kaylee Thompson. It's Kayli Thompson. I'm here tonight representing Lao on a project that's a long time coming. I wanted to thank you guys all for being here. When I found out we were the only people here tonight, you know how it goes. But I wanted to thank you for being here. I wanted to also thank the planning department, who's been extremely helpful, extremely instrumental to getting us to this point. If you read in the packet, this project has been going on since 1998. It was originally purchased. There were multiple permits that have gone through the system. 2001 permits, there was a 2010 permit, and then another 2018 permit, and there are so many things that have just came up, so many parties involved. And it's just been one of those projects that has really drug on. There were language barrier issues. There has been just odds against us on this, and I feel like we finally are to the point where we satisfy all the needs, not only for the planning department, for the traffic department, and so we finally are relieved that we're kind of at the end of this project, so I really appreciate you guys being here. We believe it satisfies all parties, and Watlau obviously has been an asset to the community. They continue to be an asset to the community. They have been for 20 years. This variance is kind of closing the paperwork loop on this, as it's been going on for so long, and so we really appreciate you being here. Please let me know if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the petitioner? Commissioner McKee?
Okay, go for it.
Hello. What's the primary reason that the 12-foot landscaping can't be provided?
Right now, the main issue is the original permit for this was submitted before the Title 21 changes, and they've already done all the work. It's already been implemented. Part of the reason they can't do it is it's complete. And so we're kind of asking for this variance after the fact, as they originally submitted a permit 2001 under a residential project. It wasn't found until the final electrical inspection of all things that it wasn't a residential permit. It was technically a change of use from a residence to a religious assembly. And so with that, they're going, hey, everything is done. Well, then we had to submit for a new change of use permit in 2010. So in 2010, the new change of use permit was submitted for, and during that time, the architect that was involved passed away. There were multiple parties that just left the project, and during that time, then the meeting canceled that permit. But under the 2010 permit and under the 2001 permit, Title 21 didn't force that landscaping. So it was already completed prior to both of these permits. Like the work was done after 1998 when they purchased it, but before all of these permits were finished. And so it's kind of a weird process because it was all done ahead of time. And I know it sounds crazy that it's now 2021, but it's been just a loop of new architects, new people involved, and we're finally to the end, and we feel it's more like a paperwork catch-up, I guess, in the sense that it was already done. Now we're trying to get it legalized. When they canceled our 2010 permit, the muni recommended we cancel that and come in with another new permit. Well, it was in 2018 when Title 21 changed, and so at that point, we're back to square one, and so that's why we're asking for the variance, is the fact that just all these issues that kind of snowballed throughout the years. So.
I have a question. I can't find it here. Maybe it's just staff can help me find it in here. But is there not also, there it is. So part of the verification of non-conforming status for this project, this is on page 7 of the staff packet. The applicant must separately resolve encroachments, administrative site plan approval, parking and loading facility design, lack of pedestrian amenities, and lack of 2 required parking spaces. So I actually virtually looked at this site to see just the site. And in 2011, whenever Street View managed to go through there, the landscaping looked really clean. It looked nice anyway. But the parking is huge for this little lot. It takes up the entire lot, and they're still missing 2 spaces. So sorry, I was looking for that and I couldn't find it, but that was my question. But that's actually now a statement. So they're kind of landlocked. That's another reason they can't meet that.
Yeah, and we believe if you read the standards that we still meet it. It just might not technically be there, but between planning and us, I believe we still do an equivalent standard, if that makes sense.
Are there any other questions? Julia's hiding in the corner. No? Okay. If there are no other questions, is there anyone here? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You have 7 minutes and 49 seconds remaining for rebuttal. Is there anyone here who wishes to testify on this case? No? Okay. So that being said, if there are no other questions of the commissioner or of the commission for staff or the petitioner, and there's nobody here to testify, then the public hearing will be closed. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I do not.
Thank you. I have to ask.
That's okay.
Sure. From your mic. To who?
To the chair.
Oh, to me.
So just for clarification, we're only addressing the first request for variance from the buffer, or we're addressing all three at this moment?
Okay, I will do my best to describe and staff can interrupt or interject at any point. So we have 3 variance requests. So for each variance request, we will request that there's a motion to approve placed onto the floor. We will have to treat it as an individual case, essentially. It's not right? So is that what you're asking? And then we'll have 3 of those. And then we have the 4th motion, which, because there's 2 conditions onto the case as a whole, we need to make sure that we state that those apply to the other 3 variances.
I think what I was making sure clarification for the full board is that this time for questioning was for all 3
Yes.
variances, that we weren't moving through
No.
them one at a time, so that if you had questions on others, such as access or
Right.
the other, that this is the time to ask them before you close.
Everybody understands that this is the time to ask any questions for all 3 variances? Okay. Okay, so I think we're ready to close the public hearing. So let's go to,
Sorry to interrupt. I think I get a staff rebuttal. I just wanted to say one more thing. Just to add on to the landscaping, I was writing down when you were responding about the parking lot. I just wrote that down to say in my rebuttal. So, yes, they would have to dig up the parking lot to extend the landscaping. They're already short a couple parking spaces, and all of the plantings are there. Like the trees have been growing there. So just some additional information for that I wrote down. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, so if we are all understanding how we move forward, then I would like to request a motion for the first variance, which is for the site access.
Hello? So I would like to make a motion to approve case 2021-0022, the request for variance from AMC 21-05040C to II to allow access other than from a collector street.
Thank you. And do we have a second? We must have a second.
I will second the motion.
Okay, so would you please speak to your motion?
Yes, the petition meets all standards, A through H, for that variance. And it seems that traffic pointed that there's an alternative for access. So I would like to support the motion.
Thank you. And would you like to speak to your second?
I do not wish to speak to my second. I agree with Commissioner Sullivan's speaking. Okay, I'm supporting the motion.
Okay, Is there anyone here who would like to make some additional, more succinct findings of fact rather than relying on the staff packet? You can use mine.
I'll add to variance AMC 21.05.04 OC.2.III. In condition A, the standard is met. Traffic engineering does not object to the variance and noted pedestrian connection to nearby commercial drive that is a minor arterial street with connections to bus transit access as an alternative means of complying with access requirements for the religious assembly. Condition B, standard is met. The proposed alternative achieves the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan to the same or better degree than the subject standard. The parcel is designated as compact mixed residential medium in the 2040 Anchorage land use plan and as residential medium density in the Mountain View targeted neighborhood plan. Standard C is met. Standard D is met. The driveways to Shaw Street have been in place at least since the 1960s and date back to original construction of the lots. Commercial Drive is 160 feet away and traffic does not enter far into a residential area to access the temple. Standard E is met. Standard F is met. Standard G is met. MOA Traffic Engineering recommended approval of the variance. It's worth mentioning that the department recommendations to resolve other outstanding nonconformities within the building, fence, parking lot, and site design outlined in the verification nonconforming status document, either by changing the building site design, obtaining a variance from the zoning board of examiners and appeals, and permission from right-of-way, obtaining administrative approval of a site plan and traffic engineering applies. And so does condition 5, that prior to these variances becoming effective, a notice of zoning action shall be filed with the State of Alaska District Recorder's Office, including a site plan showing landscaping and access, and a copy of the resolution of approval.
Well done. Thank you. Okay. Are there any other findings? All right. So I will restate the motion on the floor, if I can get to the right page. Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve variance, the variance from AMC 21.05.040C.2.III to allow access other than from a collector street instead of from Show Street. May we have a vote? Commissioner Sullivan? Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes.
Commissioner McKee?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordy? Yes. Commissioner Poland? Yes. From the chair. Motion passes. Dang. Really want to use that gavel. Okay. So we're on to the second variance. So can I get a motion to approve the second condition on the staff packet? Commissioner Sullivan, or I'm sorry, Commissioner McKee?
So, I intend to support case number, I move to approve. Okay, move to approve variance from AMC 21.05.040C2.IV and 21.07.080 to provide 8-foot landscaping beds on the full length of the north property boundary, 8-foot landscaping beds along partial lengths of the west and south property boundaries, and a 7.5-foot landscaping bed along a partial length of the east property boundary, which is lower than the required 15-foot width for L2 landscaping required along the north and east property lines, lower than the required 10-foot width for L2 landscaping along a site obscuring fence at the west property line, lower than the required 15-foot width for L2 landscaping where the south property line abuts the I-1 district, and lower than the 8-foot width for L1 landscaping where the south property line abuts the B3 district.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner Sullivan seconds. Would you please speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. I intend to support case number 2021-0022, a variance from AMC 21.05.040C2.IV and 21.07.080 for relief from L1-L2 landscaping requirements. I find that standard A is met. The landscaping on the subject property is superior than that of some nearby commercial and industrial properties and fits in well with surrounding residential properties. Standard B is met. Religious assemblies are allowed uses within residential districts, and administrative approval of a site plan and use-specific standards to ensure compatibility with surrounding neighborhoods. The subject property provides a community use that is compatible with the surrounding residential use. Policy 7 states, and Policy 46 state that the unique appeal of individual residential neighborhoods shall be protected. Buddhist monks live on the property, which makes the site have some residential qualities. The small temple size limits the number of people and vehicles that may gather at the site. Questions asked over the phone of the planning department about the variance did not result in any stated objections to keeping the existing layout and use in place. The use is compatible with surrounding multifamily and single-family residential development. The Mountain View targeted neighborhood plan describes the higher crime rate in the Mountain View neighborhood and that attractive spaces that draw both Mountain View residents and people from outside the neighborhood will help deter crime. The Lao of Anchorage site does just that in drawing people both within and outside of the neighborhood to the temple. While the site landscaping and open space does not meet Title 21 requirements, the temple and monastic premises are well maintained and still have landscaping sufficient to buffer the community use from adjacent residential, commercial, and industrial uses. Standard C is met. Standard D is met. The existing landscaping is more than some of the commercial industrial paved lots provided along Commercial Drive, and the landscaping is in character with the adjacent residential landscaping. Standard E is met. Standard F is met. The granting of this variance for driveway access and landscaping will not restrict or impede ADA accessibility or reasonable accommodation. One of the photos in the application shows a ramp to the door of the temple. Standard G is met. The granting of this variance will not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the municipality. And there is sufficient buffer of the community use from adjacent residential uses. Standard H is met because it does not involve a sign. I also think it is worth mentioning that when the property was originally purchased, these buffers were not required, that the lot is still short the 2 parking spaces, and the owners would incur a large cost to remove parking spaces in order to provide additional buffering, and that the vegetation that is there is significant and meets standards. Again, I'm not going to reread them all again, but it also should be noted that conditions 4 and 5 apply to this variance as well.
Thank you. Commissioner McKee? Commissioner Sullivan, would you care to say anything else? Assuming there's no commissioner wishing to add additional findings, may we have a vote? Oh, I guess I should restate. My apologies. I will restate the motion. Okay, the motion on the floor is to move to approve variance from AMC 21.05.040C2.IV and 21.07.080 to provide 8-foot landscaping beds on the full length of the north property boundary, 8-foot landscaping beds along partial lengths of the west and south property boundaries, and a 7.5-foot landscaping bed along a partial length of the east property boundary, which is lower than the required 15-foot width for L2 landscaping required along the north and east property lines, lower than the required 10-foot width for L2 landscaping along a side obscuring fence at the west property line, lower than the required 15-foot width for L2 landscaping where the south property line abuts the I-1 district, and lower than the 8-foot width for L1 landscaping where the south property line abuts the B3 district. May we have a vote? Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes.
Commissioner McKee?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordy?
Yes.
And Commissioner Poland?
Yes.
Yes, from the chair. Motion passes. Okay. Sorry for this, you guys. I know this is a lengthy process, but it has to be done this way, so it's good for you to listen to us suffer up here, so. Okay, moving on to, where am I? The third variance, which is the 25% lot area requirement. Commissioner Sullivan, do you want to take this one?
I would like to make a motion to approve case 2021-0022, request for variance from AMC 21.05.040C2.V. for relief from requirement for 25% of lot to be vegetable open space.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner Gordy. Commissioner Sullivan, do you care to speak? Would you please speak to your motion?
Yes. Well, they meet all standards. Especially, we understand that they don't have enough space for parking, and creating some vegetation in the lot will create parking problems. I will intend to support the motion.
And thank you.
Subject to department recommendations 1 through 4, and with the same findings that the prior, can we just hold the same findings, or do we need to go through all of them again?
Technically, for each variance, we should go through all of them again, but we can, I have, so it is always a good idea for every single variance or motion to apply the findings. I know it's redundant, but it's for the record, and it's a written record. So I have, we have some. Well, I think Commissioner Gordy, if you would care to got this. Okay, Commissioner Gordy will add some additional findings.
Okay, so for additional findings,
Do you intend to support the
I
motion?
intend to support the motion. Do we need to restate the motion at all, or can I just dive right into findings? Okay.
Just get a little closer. Can you put it a little closer?
Oh, sorry. In regard to the findings, we find that the variance meets the requirement for item A, the proposed alternative achieves the intent of the subject design standard to the same or better degree than the subject standard. The lack of open space does not deter from the aesthetic qualities of the temple. Item B, proposed alternative achieves the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan to the same or better degree than the subject standard. We've stated this a few times, so we'll just address the portion that directly addresses the variance, which is while the site, landscaping, and open space do not meet Title 21 requirements, the temple and monastic premises are well maintained and still have landscaping sufficient to buffer the community use from adjacent residential and commercial and industrial uses. Standard C, the proposed alternative results in benefits to the community that are equivalent to or better than compliance with the subject standard. The standard is met. Item D, the variance, if granted, will not adversely affect the use of adjacent property as permitted under this code. The existing landscaping is more than some of the commercial and industrial paved lots provided along Commercial Drive, and the landscaping is in character with adjacent residential landscaping. The standard is met. Item E, the variance if granted does not change the character of the zoning district where the property is located, is in keeping with the intent of the code, and does not permit a use not otherwise permitted in the district in which the property lies. The standard is met. The design variance will provide relief from some use-specific standards, but an administrative site plan must still be approved for the religious assembly use to be allowed in the R4 district. The variances will not permit a principal or accessory use not otherwise permitted in the R4 district. Item F, persons with disabilities are provided with access as required by the Americans with Disabilities Act and reasonable accommodation. This standard is met. The variance if granted, item G, the variance if granted does not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the municipality. There is a sufficient buffer of the community use from adjacent residential uses. The standard is met. And item H, the standard is met as the variance does not involve a sign. Additionally, conditions 4 and 5 and the department recommendations will apply to this variance.
Thank you. If there are no additional findings of fact, then I will state the motion on the floor. Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve variance from AMC 21.05.040C2.IV and 21.07.080 for relief from L1 and L2 landscaping requirements. Oh, sorry. Restate. Stricken from the record. The motion on the floor is a variance from AMC 21.05.040C2.V for relief from requirement of 25% of lot to be vegetated open space. May we have a vote? Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes.
Commissioner Mickey?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordy? And Commissioner Foley?
Yes.
And the chair is yes. The motion passes. Okay, we have one more. And this will just make sure that staff's recommendations 4 and 5 are applied to the all variances for the record. So who would like to make this motion? Commissioner Sullivan.
I would like to make a motion to approve case 2021-0022. 3 variances being approved, and also we would like to make the motion subject to recommendations 4 and 5, resolve other outstanding non-conforming with the building, fence, parking lot, and site design outlined in the verification non-conforming status document, either by changing the building or site design, obtaining a variance from the zoning board of examiners and appeals, and permission from right-of-way, obtaining administration approval of a site plan and traffic engineering. And condition number 5, prior to these variances becoming effective, a notice of zoning action should be filed with the State of Alaska District Recorder's Office, including a site plan showing landscape and access and a copy of the resolution of approval.
Thank you, and just to clarify the start here of your motion, it would be, the motion is to approve that department's recommendations 4 and 5 of the staff packet apply to all 3 variances, and then moving into 4 and 5. Does that satisfy what you had said?
Yes.
Okay. Just, thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner McKee? Okay. Commissioner Sullivan, would you please speak to your motion?
Nothing.
You intend to approve or
Yes,
support?
I intend to support the motion.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner McKee?
I don't need to speak to the motion, I intend to support it.
Okay, good. Okay. Anybody else like to say anything else? Okay, I'm going to restate the motion. The motion on the floor is moved to approve that the department's recommendations 4 and 5 of the staff packet apply to all 3 variances. Condition 4, resolve other outstanding nonconformities with the building, fence, parking lot, and site design outlined in the verification nonconforming status document, either by changing the building or site design, obtaining a variance from the zoning board of examiners and appeals, and permission from right-of-way, obtaining administrative approval of a site plan and traffic engineering. And condition 5, which is, prior to these variances becoming effective, a notice of zoning action shall be filed with the State of Alaska District Recorder's Office, including a site plan showing landscaping and access and a copy of the resolution of approval. May we have a vote? Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yes.
Commissioner McKee?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordy? And Commissioner Folland?
Yes.
And the chair says yes. The motion passes. Thank you so much. And yes, I think the Watlau Monastery is an amazing thing to have in Mountain View. It brings joy and happiness. And so I'm sorry that this has been going on for 15 years for you, but it sounds like it's coming to a close. So thank you for your time tonight.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you guys. Sorry to be the only tonight.
No, that's our job. That's why we're here.
You guys brought out the right person.
That's why we're here. Had we had any more cases, we'd be here till midnight.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on with the agenda here. I think we're done. Is there an appearance request? Oh, that's if there is an appearance request, there'll be something under there. Okay. Anybody? We're all done? Are we good?
Yes. I
Can,
would like to make a motion to adjourn.
your mic's not on. I'm sorry. We're going to be here for. No, I'm sorry.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. And Commissioner McKee seconds. Thank you. Good night.